Kelly sat in silence, her hands trembling under the table. The camera was still rolling, but her voice had disappeared. Then she looked up, eyes red, lips pressed tight, and whispered the words no one expected to hear. "We found it too late." The room froze. Her co-host leaned in, unsure if she'd really said it. But the truth was already in her eyes. Something had been happening behind the scenes. Something private, painful. And now it was no longer hidden. This wasn't a dramatic moment for ratings. This was real. And it all started with a quiet symptom. If you've ever faced something scary with someone you love, stay with us. This story may speak to you. It started small, so small that neither of them gave it much thought. Mark would forget little things. A name, a meeting where he placed his keys. They laughed it off at first. "Getting older," he'd say with a smile. Kelly nodded, even though something in her chest tightened each time. But then it began happening more often. On air, Mark paused mid-sentence. Off air, he asked the same question twice in 5 minutes. Still, he brushed it aside. "I'm just tired," Kelly didn't push. She trusted him. Until the morning he stood in the kitchen and asked, "Where do we keep the glasses again?" That's when she knew. This wasn't just stress. Something was wrong. One evening, as the sun faded through the windows, Mark tried to read a simple card their daughter had written. His eyes moved across the words, but nothing seemed to register. He blinked, read it again, then lowered the paper slowly, as if his body understood something his mind could not. Kelly watched in silence, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Mark looked up at her, but there was no answer in his eyes, only confusion. It was the first time she had seen him afraid. That night, she made the call. No more excuses. No more waiting. Something had been silently growing inside him, and time was no longer on their side. The room was too quiet for the kind of news they feared. The doctor sat across from them, not with panic, but with practiced caution. He didn't rush. That alone made Kelly's stomach turn. "Mark," he began. "We found something. It's not what we hoped for." Time paused. Words like degenerative, progressive, and neurological floated across the room. Kelly held Mark's hand tighter, but he didn't react. Maybe he didn't understand. Or maybe he did, and just didn't want her to see him break. The diagnosis didn't come with a cure, only a plan to manage it, for now. And in that moment, their future, once predictable and bright, became something entirely unknown. She tried to hold it in. She really did, but the silence that followed the doctor's words felt heavier than anything she'd ever known. Kelly sat frozen for a moment, her eyes wide but empty. Then she looked at Mark. Not for strength, but for permission to feel what she was feeling. Her hand flew to her mouth, and the first tear escaped without warning. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, but deep. "This can't be happening," she whispered, almost to herself. Mark didn't speak. He just looked down, shoulders rising once, then falling, and in that moment, the woman the world always saw smiling, completely broke. Back home, there were no lights, no cameras, just silence. The kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath. Mark sat by the window, hands folded, watching the street without really seeing it. Kelly moved slowly through the house, like the weight of the news had taken gravity with it. She found his sweater on the couch, the one he always wore when he didn't feel well. She picked it up, held it to her chest, and closed her eyes. There were no words between them. Not yet, just glances, touches, long pauses. They weren't ready to talk. They were just trying to breathe together.